Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Friday, March 21st, 2025. It is about 4:15 and we are continuing with the FY26 budget. And we are now going to move on to talking about some of the numbers that we have. Emily, the queen of spreadsheets, has lots of stuff to. Yeah. So let me join the meeting and I will share this. So for the record, Emily Burton, who joined fiscal office. The first thing that we're going to go through is a spreadsheet that we haven't looked at yet. But it is the other, Brady mentioned yesterday while he was going through the governor's base language, he quickly went past the section that had all the other transfers in it that are not the spell check this, so hopefully I spelled some things correctly. But the other transfers that are not related to the general fund, so I know we spent a lot of time talking about the general fund, but in the big bill there are also transfers happening between other funds. So I thought it would make a lot of sense to put it on a spreadsheet so you can see it so that you know what's in the language regarding other transfers that are occurring. I should share my screen. Here we go. So right, these are the not general fund transfers. So on line 1 is the transfers from the transportation fund. So we have about $300,000 going to the debt services fund from the transportation fund. They contribute a little bit to general obligation debt. And then about $500,000 going to the downtown transportation and related capital improvements fund, which luckily Chris is here so I can phone a friend in case you have questions on what that fund is. So the general fund gives about 74 million or 81 million or something like that, and the transportation fund is 310,000. Just for comparison's sake. Okay. Wayne?
So what debt are we servicing with that?
Just general obligation bonds.
Bonds, but it's not the bond dollars from capital.
So Christmas fiscal, this is a remnant of a general obligation bond that went through the capital bill in like 2009. And this cost will drop off of the T fund, I believe, in fiscal 29. And the other item there, that downtown, the transfer to the downtown fund, that's standard every year.
Thank you.
All right. Those are the transfers from the transportation fund to other funds. The next one is the transfer from the education fund to the tax computer modernization fund. There's also a general fund transfer to the tax computer modernization fund. This is the fund that the tax department uses to maintain, upkeep, et cetera, their computer fund, their IT system that does all of the tax collections. So to the extent sales tax and some other taxes that go to the education fund are collected by the tax department, they sort of contribute, and it's a very small amount sort of off the top, if you will, of those tax types, but the little bit comes off the top of those taxes that are collected to go to the tax department to support making sure that there's a system available to actually collect the taxes, if that makes sense. So this is the ed fund share of that little bit. The next one is from the Clean Water Fund to the Agriculture Clean Water Special Fund, because there's a special one for everybody else's clean water projects and then one for agriculture. And that is the wrong explanation. The Clean Water Fund does not give money to the Tax Computer Modernization Fund. I apologize for that. I will fix it and send another one around. That one should say it's only, and it's the wrong amount. I will change that and send it out. Right, so the 11 million?
The 11 million is correct. That's the one, that's the amount from the Clean Water Fund to the agriculture
Yeah.
Water quality special fund. The next line is a bad copy and paste on my part. So I'll print another one for everybody and send it around and get an updated one posted. But that should say to the Lakes in Crisis Response Program Special Fund, not to the, no, the Clean Water Fund does not contribute to the Tax Computer Modernization Fund.
Do we have more than one lake in crisis? Is it still only Lake Karma?
It's just one lake in crisis. And that's it'll be $120,000 from the Clean Water Fund, to the Lake in Crisis Fund.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so then the next one, and this is good to go through this one before we go through the cash fund in a little bit. But so this is money coming from the other infrastructure, essential investments and reserves sub-account in the cash fund for capital and essential investments, which is the cash fund sub-account B. So for those who are familiar with the cash fund or have been around, there's two sub-accounts in the cash fund. Sub-account A is what is used to do capital projects with general fund effectively. Sub-account B has been used as the sort of holding place for match for the IIJA money at the federal level. So what is happening in this case is there was $12.5 million set aside in that fund for transportation related project or transportation related match for IIJA that we knew would be needed sort of in future years. This is transferring the match that's needed in FY26 out of the cash fund and to the transportation fund so they can use it for match for those projects. That's the first 12 and a half.
12 and a half is for, right, IIJ match. Okay.
That's federal match, obviously.
It's federal match, yeah. Drawdown federal funds.
Is that just one-on-one
They
now?
are, we got down to.
One-to-one match or?
It's a one-to-one
or is it
match.
way higher? It's like
Something very different, right?
Yeah, so first joint fiscal, the standard federal match is 80-20. There are some exceptions that go to 90-10. There are some that are 100%. But generally it's 80-20. And this 12 and a half was reserved on the contingent list at the end of FY24 is fully programmed into the FY26 transportation budget. So you will just see this money, it's not tied to specific projects,
Yeah.
it just moves over to the T fund and it supports the entire white plan.
All right, that's the 12 and a half million. Did you already explain the 1 million?
I've not explained the 1 million. So the
Okay.
1 million after, I keep using this term and we'll call it a JFO technical term, but last year there was a little bit of accounting gymnastics that went on between the cash fund and the general fund, where we were moving money in and out of the sub-account B. Or I think part of it was, we were trying to balance the budget and then there was a contingent list, money out of the cash fund, then we put money back in the cash fund anyway, in all of that, moving money back and forth, there was $1 million left in sub-account B in FY25. So right now there is $1 million that's undesignated in sub-account of the cash fund.
This is sub-account A.
Yes, this is going to transfer it from sub-account B to sub-account A. It's getting transferred to sub-account A and then will be spent or utilized as part of the cash fund construct that the Corrections and Institutions has been working on.
Basically, it comes to us.
Yes,
That's the technical.
yes. So
Yeah.
it'll be, yes, it's available to sources of funds in sub-account A for cash fund investments in FY 2026. We have to move it from one sub-account to the other sub-account. Those are all of the other transfers that are in the budget.
So we don't actually, they'll be in the budget, but we don't spend a lot of time saying, do we think these are the right numbers? Because other people know what the right numbers are. So we just say, thank you very much. Okay, questions on that? Okay.
Great. Well, that's this one. I don't know if if there are any other questions on this one. I'm going to go update it to get the right clean water number on them, updated copies and get the right one on the website.
Is this where we switch to Maria?
Yes.
Want to update this?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Maria, so let me pass this out. Maria did this nifty little, there's so many wonderful spreadsheets. She did a nifty little spreadsheet. Yeah, about, I don't know if there's enough there. Okay, property transfer tax.
That's right, and you haven't even had a discussion about it in the budget adjustment bill. So I just put this, I'm just gonna say, property transfer tax, if you spend a lot of time with it, you'll start getting like very, it's like gives you a headache, like immediately. So, but we're not gonna, that's, I'm not kidding. Okay, so.
I'm not doubting.
So if you look at section D 100 of your language, property transfer tax, this is where the property transfer tax is, there's language that transfers the property transfer tax to different appropriations. So the spreadsheet that I gave you, it can be a little confusing, so we're just going to look at the column on the right. And at the top, in the top little box on the top right is, if we just follow the formula and, okay, so that's that. And then underneath it is what's in the governor's recommend. And just for your information, they're actually the same, but I'm going to tell you, they appear a little bit differently, but in reality, they're fairly similar for the Vermont Housing Conservation Board. The way that that the language is drafted in statute is that the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, they get $2.5 million for this bond payment that, the housing bond several years ago. So $1.5 million of that went directly to Vermont Housing Conservation Board. But now in the new construct that was passed in H 181 of 2024 last year, they're not giving that 1.5 to the Vermont Housing Conservation Board just because it just goes to pay the bond. It's not money that they can use to go do their.
I give it to them because they
Yeah.
can't use it.
So when you look on the sheet on the bottom half, you'll see the revenue forecast of this 80.6 million. Then you see the bond payment that's swept out. Then you see the amount that goes to the tax department. And that's actually the amount that they need, to operate. But
Far right-hand column.
yes, I am.
Thank you.
And I'm under the blue line, the dark blue line. So by statute, the tax department would get this 1.17 million, but they actually don't need that much. So they don't get the full amount. So then we give let's see, what is this? The general fund gets 30.5 million, and VHCB, which is where a lot of the interest is $36.9 million. And so that, if you added 1.5, like they used to get that bond payment, you'd see the same thing. The number would match what's above for the formula. But like I said, we're not doing the 1.5 to them anymore. So they're getting the formula amount, and that is $8.7 million more than they got in fiscal 25. And if you go back to this time last year, when we passed the original budget, they're getting $14.8 million more than that amount. Act 181 raised additional money from the property transfer tax. They raised the rate on non-principal residences that you could live in year round. So they're second homes that are not occupied year round. So they raised $14.5 million. So that's part of the money. And then the other part is just that the property transfer tax, did better than originally anticipated. So that's a really long story just to tell you that good news, VHCB is getting the statutory amount and it's in the governor's recommend.
And we're notwithstanding.
No, not, yeah, none of that.
I remember in this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to remind you, the 80,600,000, that was the consensus revenue forecast that we heard, the E-board heard in January. That's what they said. So that's why we use that number for the budget. And then, so it's always for the budget, it's always the January revenue forecast, not the July one.
That's correct.
That revenue is the property transfer tax revenue. Is that my?
That's what Cadet and Carr think that we will get for.
That's correct.
For property transfer tax revenue.
Yes. And then also, the Regional Planning Commission number matches, and so does the Municipal Planning Commission numbers and GIS, those bottom three on page, in the language.
Green section down below, you break out the MRPF, Municipal Regional and Planning.
That's right. Yeah.
Who gets municipal planning?
So so what happens is in this section, this shows you all the transfers, to these different funds, but then the money actually gets appropriated for municipal and regional planning funds in the ACCD budget. They have these contracts with the municipal planning people and the regional planning commissions, and the money goes out the door from ACCD. If you want more information about how that actually happens.
I'm just curious,
There's $1,260,000 that says municipal planning. Who's that?
So those are the towns. So some of the towns, there's a competitive grant process. Towns apply to ACCD and for these municipal planning grants.
Okay,
And-
if I represent a town and we want to update our town plan or something, I can apply for a grant. It goes to ACCD.
It goes through ACCD. That's there are, these are longstanding grants, every year you got to apply, but there are towns that have been
It
getting,
goes to towns on a.
yes, that's
As
correct.
opposed to the regional planning, which is divvied up among the RPC.
That's correct.
And the GIS, that's for dating town
If you go to the ADS budget, Agency of Digital Services, go to their budget and you look through it, you'll find $1 million for this GIS project. That's where it used to be separate on its own, but now it's been folded in. So that's where it lives.
Lynn.
Yeah, what is the tax, the 591?
So that is the tax department. They need a certain amount of money just to administer this program.
Okay, that's to administer it.
Yeah.
And where does the bond payment go into the HCB, but it's no longer at 22.5 million?
Yeah, I think that just goes,
So the bond that we have to pay.
yeah, the bond, we have to pay.
That's the information on it.
Yeah, so while you have your craziness, I have my anger.
Okay.
For 15 years of talking about the PTC, and it's been adjusted over the last few years. And this is the first time that any administration has just split it and done the statutory give. The numbers are different than they used to be, but this is nothing has been not withstood from here, but the bond payment, so the bond payment is from the 2017 housing bond. $37 million created $150 million worth of housing or what have you. And when the budgets have been set in the past, it's like, okay, VHCB we're going to not withstand everything, but we're going to give VHCB 13.5 million, of which 1.5 is cut off the top to pay for the bond payment. So really VHCB would get, whatever I just said, less 1.5. The other $1 million came from the Clean Water Fund. We've had that conversation this week. And so that gets paid back through the bond process. After years of saying, can't you just take it off the top? That's what they're doing here. They're just taking it off the top before they split on the percentage basis. So the HCB, again, I may have the numbers wrong, but it used to be after 2% off for fees, administrative fees for tax, I guess. VHCB would get 50% of the 98% that was left.
That's right.
It's slightly different numbers now, but that's, and is the Clean Water Fund in here? Is the 0.22%, is that in here?
Okay, so at the top, there's this note that says, the clean water surcharge, that's the $1 million is not included in the spreadsheet. Oh, I'm sorry. Except for the $1 million. It's on the bottom. Yes, it's on, yes. But the rest, we've gotten this question many times before, like, what about all the rest of the clean water surcharge? And that's not in the spreadsheet. That's a whole different thing. It's not.
But this is represent the 0.22% that has been utilized for the Clean Water Fund since 2018.
Correct. Yes. That's right. Yeah, so you'll see the $1 million clean water surcharge in that light blue line on the maybe 3/4 of the way down the sheet. So,
All right,
okay, thank you.
so, yes.
Are we done?
It's dying as one.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
So we have this formula, but in the creation of this formula, is there language in terms of, I mean, it's a formula. Was there ever any cap or anything else in that formula? Was it with the original language that it defined that this would go on with this proportion forever, or is there any?
So you're referring to the distribution of the property transfer tax or the clean water surcharge?
No, the first.
Okay, as long as there's a property transfer tax in the statute, I mean, there's a formula for how to.
It's statutory formula. Again, it's been slightly changed over the last couple of years with the increase in funding. But with the fact that we notwithstand anything to the contrary, no matter what the law says, we can distribute this as we see fit.
Okay, so you can say, so I just say we anticipate that we solve our housing problems. And then the need perhaps is taken care of by the community and the people building houses and living in them. So then we can do what we want. You think you answered?
Well, we can do whatever we want anyway. And so over the last few years, well, there's been a lot of money spent for housing in terms of this money, which was always considered the best money for the purposes that it's set.
Yeah.
So the VHCB money, I can speak to that forever, but the idea is that 60% of that VHCB give goes to housing, 40% goes to conservation matches and efforts. So this isn't $37 million to housing, but it is substantially more than has been in the recent past from this fund. When we've used ARPA money or other federal funds, we've given it to VHCB for housing, so they don't have to give, whatever we give them, they don't split it 60-40. But so the real number for housing here is whatever 60% of this $37 million is. But we always will be able to change the amount being given because of our statute in the end. For all of our books could say, notwithstanding anything else, we can appropriate this money the way that we want.
So the 60-40 ratio could change.
It has changed in the past. It could change.
That's set by statute, not by VHCB.
I'm gonna just look over the Polly.
All major policy or HDP. It is a discretion of the board, but if the board has a ratio that goes beyond 70-30, we need to report back to the legislature on the rationale for the because of the increase last year and because of the need to respond to the housing crisis, we are looking at spending 2/3 on housing.
So 66.
Pretty consistent over time, or I think we can change that.
It's been between 50-50 and 60-40 over time. 60-80.
Okay. And that's the property transfer tax. And it covers a lot of things, but it is also tax, right?
Yep.
Get to know it.
To know it.
This is one of those that some of it goes to some of Tiff's groups because she has VHCP, but it starts off by being a tax. So we just.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Maria. Emily, is it your turn again?
Yeah, probably. Even.
These sheets are updated.
I cannot keep back. If you want to give me the old one, I can throw it all away. Yes. That have the wrong numbers. Do you want to do website, you want to do the C section?
What are our options?
C section,
Okay.
direct action reversion, base or one.
Let's do the direct action to reversion, then segments.
Where are we going away? I think I want
The wrong,
This is the new one,
Yeah.
the capsule.
that's the new one is posted online for those watching at home. This is the one we were doing.
Oh, this is
no,
why we throw the other one
I'm
away.
taking that one back.
You want it back?
Yeah. I gave you the wrong one. Am I going out of order?
Okay.
You want to do direct action reversions first, right?
Is there anything anybody needs to ask on the corrected version? We now have the lake and prices and all of that, so we don't need to review it again.
Together.
Give us something. Are we passing out things? I love all the different colors, but just passing out. There's it, sorry. This doesn't look like it's changed in a little while.
No, I just, you're reaching out, I just thought you were ready to go. Ready to grab it out of your hand.
I don't believe this has changed. Yeah, I may have filled in the house column, but. Oh, no, it has changed. What has changed? The cash fund. Let me share this. So, Emily Byrne from the Joint Fiscal Office. We're gonna talk about some more transfers.
Transfer in and out, so.
Yeah.
Here.
These are the transfers to and from the general fund. So these ones we've talked a little bit more about, but wanted to get them back on us, in front of you. So in the top in purple is the money going from the general fund to other places. So at the top on line 1 is the money going to the debt service fund, for the just general obligation bond debt. In line 2 is the cash fund transfer. Now, I believe Representative Emmons and Scott Moore from Joint Fiscal Office and John Gray from Legislative Council will be in later to present the appropriations from the cash fund and what is sort of going on there. But the Institutions Committee was able to reduce the amount of the transfer from the general fund to the cash fund by about $7.3 million. Part of that is related to the $1 million we just talked about coming from subaccount B to subaccount A. So that was additional funding that was available to get transferred back out of that fund. And there were also some additional, they had some savings from prior years, some additional reductions in appropriations. I believe there will be a request to add a one-time appropriation. So they will give you money back and then make an appropriation, not out of the cash fund, just regular out of the general fund.
Right,
From this
7.3.
pot of money that they are
So it's
returning.
a minus because it's coming to us as general fund.
Yes. The next line is the tax computer modernization fund that we just spoke about. We talked about the ed fund, transfer to that fund. There's also a general fund component that same computer fund is used to do income taxes, corporate taxes, et cetera. So that's the general fund's share of that fund. The next line is a transfer to the Fish and Wildlife Fund to shore up their, they currently have a deficit in that fund.
Jim.
So I'm just trying to understand the cash fund. They're spending 7 million less with cash. Does that mean they're bonding more?
They're not bonding anymore. No. They found, I don't want to speak out of turn and I haven't been in the committee, but my understanding is they both had, so there's the repo committee, which is what it's called, right? And they look back at prior year capital appropriations and determine what where there's unspent dollars that can be utilized, so bonded dollars that hasn't been bonded. Or that can be funds that can be reallocated. They found some reallocations within prior year cash fund as well. And then there's some prior year money or whatever. So they are still, I can't remember the amount that they're still spending from the cash fund. It is less than what the governor had recommended. But they're not bonding any additional dollars. They're just spending less money than was recommended by the governor.
And that
So-
amount is gonna end up, well, I'm sorry, Jeff. Well, I just want to, sorry. So one option is to let us spend the 7 million, right? 7.3, or they could bond for less than what they would have otherwise.
I think we'll have Alex explain this when she comes down.
Let me give you a little bit. When they go and sweep back money, they don't have money, they have bonding authority. They issue bonding authority to agencies, it's not money. The money doesn't happen until work starts and they go to the bond bank to issue a bond to get actual money. Cash fund, they don't have any appropriation authority for cash. They don't, this body is the only one that has appropriation authority. So the only way that they can have a project, something they want to spend, is they have to come and have us spend it for them.
So it turns out they're on their way. I just got a text.
Perfect.
So we'll hang on to that
Yeah.
until we hear from them.
So those are the total, base transfers. So you'll see that on the big spreadsheet, base transfers line. And then we have the one-time transfers. So the 77 million to the education fund. That's been talked about. I know there is still some conversation about the amount to go to the information technology fund for the agency digital service for that sort of double payment, to change the way that they do the, service level agreements. And then finally, the, funding to the environmental contingency fund for PCB related cleanup. I know there was some conversation about what that number should be, so that is still blank here until that is decided.
It's changed. So that's a point of discussion for us to have. So I think with beautiful timing, we'll have Chair Emmons and John and whoever else needs to come to the table to talk to us about the cash fund. And I wonder if there's you have any things to hand out to? Cash? Yeah. You have some cash to hand out? Is there anything that we have on the website at this point here? We don't have anything.
We can say what we're doing and then it's very simple.
So John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel. I think if I'm understanding correctly, this is just specifically a request for a line item appropriation. So I can just, the content that was included in the previous capital bill that's been stripped out and is proposed to be included here is just a line item. So I can tell you what it says, but I don't have something separate from the capital bill that accomplishes this. So we're talking about a $2 million appropriation to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development for the development of housing and related infrastructure.
So if you could pause before that, we were just looking at base transfers. And we were looking at the money for the capital infrastructure fund, the cash fund. The governor had put in 14.88 million. Oh, thank you for handing that down. Line 2. And okay, so you were planning to use 7.54, contribute 7.54, which left 7.3 to come to the general fund, of which you want to use to something for something. But let's talk about how you put 7.3 first.
I can explain that.
Yeah.
So I've been living it. So we have worked through our capital budget. We're going to get it out on Tuesday, not today, because things have gotten a little crazy today and I've lost members who had to leave. There's 3 moving pieces. Out of the total, there's 7.3 million that's coming from our capital budget cash fund to you folks to use. Of that 7.3, can I free? 4.3 of that is to use as you folks wish.
4.3.
4.3. On top of that, there was $1 million that was in sub-account B of the cash fund from last year that we had freed up for you folks that you didn't use. And the administration put that 1 million into our capital bill this year. We have given that back to you. We did that about a month ago. So there's 1 million added to that 5.3. So you have 5.3 in total from our capital bill that you can work with in whatever way you want. 5.3 and 339,000, whatever, there's change. That is for you to work with, that we have freed up in the capital bill for you folks. That's all cash. Okay? Then in the capital bill, we had a governor's recommend for some private projects in 3 communities, one in Bennington, Brattleboro, and Barry, that was using capital dollars. And we're saying no use of capital dollars here because there's many other projects out there very similar that could be coming in. And we don't want to, we just didn't agree with it. So we are moving $2 million of cash for housing projects. And John has the language. We're moving $2 million of cash to you folks to do a line item in the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. So you're made whole. You don't have to find 2 million. We're giving it to you. And then
So this is something that the governor wanted, and we're doing it in a way that is more appropriately done.
I should introduce myself for the record. Representative Alice Evans, Chair of House Corrections and Institutions Committee. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I just want to get my arms around it. So that 2 million was in the governor's recommend where? For bonded dollars?
Yeah, no, it was, yes, bonded dollars. And we moved it, in fact, it was 3 million, we cut it down to 2. And we moved it to cash, and we were gonna do it through the cash fund. We were gonna do it through the sub-account B of the cash fund, and then, so instead of appropriating it there and then pulling it out, we're just gonna do it straight.
So the 5.3 that you're not utilizing. This was money left over from other projects?
It was a
Or did you bond, you put some things in the bond category?
a lot of moving around.
Yeah.
There's some projects. We found a little bit of money from projects that had unexpended balances at the end. We moved some money around between bonding and cash. We had previous budgets, previous projects in the previous budget that maybe wasn't going along as far as it was, so we could cut some money there, and we just kind of worked between bonding and cashing. And we made sure that what we could send to you was cash. So the way it really works is in our capital bill, there was a general fund transfer, that's the up to 4% transfer to the cash fund from the general fund. That was about 14.8 million.
What the governor recommended.
Well, that's what the governor recommended, was 14.8 million of general fund transfer to the cash fund for the capital bill. Well, we're saying we're only going to use 7.5 and change of that. The remainder comes to you, which is 7.3 million.
You have taken this 5.3 or whatever is left here. Would you have reduced your bonding by putting that money that way?
No, not really. Because we have a bonding capacity of 50 million.
You could have done $45 million in bond if you used that.
We wouldn't have been able to meet our needs for projects for that, for what was needed out there. We wouldn't have been able, if we had done.
Use cash for a project that's a long-term project, right? Because
We do some projects have a combination of bonding and cash.
I'm saying, instead of take the 5 million, I'm not saying you should, is an option. could you have taken the 5 million and reduced the 50 million to 45 million? Same money, same dollar.
You could have,
That's what I mean,
you could have, but it,
just trying to understand, Alice, I'm just, those are.
we do a 2-year budget.
I know at the same time, there's pressure so that we can try to satisfy some of the unmet needs, I guess. So I'm just trying to ask what the options were.
Wayne?
How much money is left in the cash fund? The money. in
How
cash.
much money is left in the cash fund? Almost, it's all been allocated. There was, what we ended up doing in the cash fund this time around, there was 200,000 from last year. In last year's capital bill that went to some planning for the stack area in the pavilion, that they're not going forward with that, so we freed that up. And was 1.5 million that went to the vets home for, renovations at the B and C wing that they're not going forward with, but they had more of an emergency in the A wing and they didn't have money for it. So we pulled that 1.5 million in cash to do the A wing and not do the B and C wing.
Heard about the A-wing.
Yeah, and we took care of that because we had the money, the cash for it. We haven't, there was nothing else. I mean, we moved some money around. We moved a substantial part of major maintenance for BGS from cash over to bond.
If I may, sure. For the record, Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office. This budget, essentially, the beginning cash balance from last year was 2.1 million, give or take and change. What this budget does is it spends all the cash down.
Yeah.
So at the end of this budget, there, in the 2-year cycle, there would be no cash left until another infusion of cash might come with the annual transfer of 4%. Right now, this budget basically spends it all.
But usually there's some sort of transfer, so the
would
point
be
is to
punished.
move it there and then use it. And then-
Right. We've allocated every money for the whole amount that's in the cash fund. It's all been allocated.
Just fill back up to the 4%.
Hmm.
The 4% fills it back
Next year.
next
Next
year.
year.
Right, each year. So do we have the language, John, that
I can pull up something if that,
we'll need to have it, if we can send it to Aaron also, so we can post it on our computer.
but this.
Yes.
Okay, so in the BAA, the administration has proposed language so that projects after a couple of years that maybe not has been fulfilled, it revert back or something. I don't think we addressed it in the BAA unless the Senate did.
For a specific project, or is it some?
It was language that you weren't quite concerned, weren't quite satisfied with. And it was about the cash fund, and it was about, I think, allowing money to be spent. There's some 2-year language in there now. Okay, about.
Not registering, what am I missing?
Change that to 3 years.
That was, right, in the language for the cash fund that was first put in, there were 2 pieces that the administration had some concern about. One was, when does the trigger start to count how long the money can stay in the cash fund?
Right.
When it's not expended, what do we do with it? We clarified that it's at the end of a legislative session. So everyone is clear.
Did we put language somewhere?
We have it in our capital bill for that.
Okay.
The other thing is the 2-year time frame has already will be expiring. And some of the dollars that we have put in for capital projects in FY '24, some of them are part of a project that's continuing to be funded. So it's not all encumbered. What we have suggested in our language, we extend that 2-year look back to 3 years. Let's give it another year and let's see how it goes.
Totally fine. I just didn't know if we needed to put something back. So I'm good.
We took care of it in our language.
So do we have,
Yep. So super simple. And I pulled this into a standalone document because the way that we had this formatted within the capital bill relied on some other structures, but this would just be the line item insertion for this. Fiscal year 2026, $2 million is appropriated from that other infrastructure sub-account of the cash fund to ACCD for the development of housing and related infrastructure.
I didn't think we were gonna have it go to the pitch. Sorry.
should it go to DHCD within it, Department of Housing and Community Development within ACCD?
We're gonna do-
What's
okay.
ACCD?
Well, it's under, it was, the way it was on our spreadsheet in our budget was Agency of Commerce and Community Development. But we had Commissioner Farrell come in and testify, so.
They can take
So-
direct. HCD can take direct. Or a question, can the HCD take direct?
Oh, does it have to go through ACCD or can it go to DHCD directly?
Right, right. Well, we had Commissioner Farrell from Department of Housing and
Yeah,
whatever. He was the one that testified to us, but the way it's listed on our spreadsheet was at the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. So I don't know what it would be in your world.
We'll start with ACCD.
we can do that and then if we need to change it, then we can change it if it has to be something more specific.
I think the important thing in too, it's neutral for you. You folks are held harmless.
We're just passive, yeah. Perfect. Goes to new projects or these are three
Three projects,
private ones in Bennington, Brattleboro and.
various private projects.
Right, okay, that's good, thank you for reminding me.
We call them 3Bs.
The three Bs, exactly. Okay.
And
So the cash fund language has been posted, thank you, Aaron.
And if I can throw something out there, if we're reducing the money that's being transferred over, then this would just be a general fund appropriation, unlike what we were doing in the capital bill, where it was taken from that sub-account in the cash fund. So it would just be 2 million from the general fund to ACCD, and if we needed to
We're
spend.
transferring the 5.3
Exactly.
or 7.3, and so 2 million of that, we're basically earmarking for, because we have the money. They're giving us the money to do the project.
Exactly.
And then you got 5.3 after that to do
We appreciate it.
what you need to do with it. But let's not make a habit of it.
All right, I think that was all, you will have your meeting next week, Alice, after you get the capital bill out, so we understand.
We're gonna get it out on Tuesday.
Okay. All right, great, thank you very much.
I'll be back.
Well, coming in.
Okay.
Happy Friday.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so
Keep your anger
Committee-
and distress.
I think it's time for committee. What I'd like to do is I would like Emily to finish the bottom line of direct applications to the general fund, which will take about 30 seconds. And then I need to have a little meeting upstairs, so we'll take a break at that point. And pizza has been ordered for 6 o'clock.
Oh, good night.
So if you need to go get things and there's a break, that could be the time to go get things.
Lifetime supply of
And
guacamole.
Representative Kimball brought these in
I
apparently.
had some.
So is Emily ready to come up? It's just the applications and direct apps to the general fund, so right now, and then we'll break.
There it is, Joe.
It's purple on the top and sort of pinkish orange on the bottom.
No, not so.
I think she color codes them with all different colors. Okay.
All right. Emily Byrne from the Joint Fiscal Office. Finish the sheet we were going through before. At the very bottom are the direct applications, which are the transfers to the general fund. On the, should have renumbered this when I added stuff, but anyway, so line 6 in the pink section. is the AHS earned federal receipts. I believe this is a good time to mention that there was a proposal, I think, to increase this by $2 million. And the Commissioner of Finance and Management asked that that not be increased by $2 million, but offered up a different $2 million source of funds, which is a reversion. So when we go through the reversion spreadsheet, we can show that change, but that will change. The next one is the Attorney General settlements. So there's typically an amount of money that we assume will come into the Attorney General's office and then will get transferred to the general fund. Annually, it's a $2 million number in the budget. The next line is the unclaimed property transfer of $6 million. This is sort of a statutory amount calculated by the Treasurer's Office. In line 9 are the DFR transfers. So these show up in sub B1, D101, B1A, B, and then B2A, probably be a capital B. But these are funds from the DFR special funds that come to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year.
So captive insurance and banking and all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one is the sports wagering direct application. So additional funds from the sports wagering special fund are directed to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year. And then also the liquor control fund come to the general fund. So that is a total of $102 million worth of anticipated funds being transferred from special funds into the general fund in FY 2026.
Quick question on that.
Yes.
Just on the liquor control money, is that now the new par?
Yes.
It has been like 21 million, and so this is the new par based on a more, a different audit of what we're bringing in.
Jim.
With one exception, because there's 1.8 million for that technology business to business software that's taken out of this, I believe.
Is this net of that?
Yeah, I think this.
From the liquor control.
Yeah.
So everything else being equal, it would have been 1.8 million higher, still below the 21 million gap.
We're not, but now it's based on reality and not based on a number.
Well, it's based on history or assumption of history.
Yeah.
Which could be fiction, but,
Yeah.
so the question just for clarification, so the enterprise fund, which are the profits that, are gained through the sales of spirits, right? Not beer is taxed differently, wine is taxed differently. This, well, if the DLL had no other projects, the state would get, general fund would get all of this, but then they can pull out or apply to pull out like the 1.8 for different internal projects. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we have to approve them because it's part of their budget.
Right, but this is, yeah, but it's not like all of this is in free money to them to use however they want. There's an expectation that they're returning the funds to the general fund, but if there are special needs.
And there are other revenues that don't show here, like the 5% liquor tax, spirits tax, and the sales tax. Liquor
Right, those are counted differently. This is their, I mean, this is essentially the profit.
of their business.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Okay. So I need to go upstairs, so we will take a break. Let's come back at 5:25. I'm not rounding because I just feel like every 5 minutes we're gonna meet. And then that gets.